Good evening. It's Wednesday, January 15th. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Tonight may be the last big speech we'll see from San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer. As the start of his final year in office, he's laying out how to spend your tax dollars in his State of the City address. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen is covering it for us tonight. He's live at Balboa Theater downtown with a preview. Andrew.
Well, Maya, thanks. And tonight, the mayor's office is telling us that he'll be unveiling his most ambitious housing reform yet. And if we listen back to a bit of what he said in last year's speech, that might give us some insight into what to listen to.
Together, we're going to transform San Diego into a YIMBY city.
YIMBY stands for Yes in My Backyard, a rallying cry for those who see the scarcity of housing as the main culprit for why San Diego is so expensive. In his 2019 speech, Faulconer proposed getting rid of height limits outside the coastal zone and allowing big increases in housing density if developers agree to also build more affordable housing for the poor and homeless. 1 year later, neither of those initiatives has been finalized, and tonight, Faulconer might give more details on how they'll work. As he enters his final year in office, Faulconer wants to leave a legacy of reimagining how San Diego deals with its housing affordability crisis. And Maya, you might hear the sound of protesters in the background. That's become an annual feature of the mayor's State of the City address. In just a few minutes, we'll be heading back into the Balboa Theater right behind me and listening to the mayor's speech. Of course, our listeners and viewers can tune in tomorrow for some highlights from the speech, as well as some reactions from the San Diego City Council. Reporting from the Balboa Theater downtown, Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Thanks for that report, Andrew. Now to a rare historic moment in Congress late today. The House of Representatives formally advances articles of impeachment. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi signed the papers this afternoon. From there, House members personally delivered them to the Senate. A trial is expected to begin within days, and now there are questions over how quickly Republicans will act now that they can control the process. Sarah Murray has more.
The president is not above the law. He has been impeached. He's been impeached forever. They can never erase that.
The final chapter of President Trump's impeachment begins today, as 2 articles of impeachment are set to be transmitted to the Senate. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi unveiled 7 impeachment managers, including Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff and Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler.
The emphasis is on comfort level in the courtroom. The emphasis is making the strongest possible case to protect and defend our Constitution, to seek the truth for the American people.
After presenting the articles to the Senate tonight, the managers will act as the prosecutors for House Democrats, outlining for senators the case against President Trump for his role in the Ukraine scandal. After that, the president's lawyers will have a chance to present their defense. Ahead of the vote on House impeachment managers, Republicans let out wails of protest.
Back when this national nightmare began,
this impeachment process has been flawed from the outset. It resembles not a congressional action, it resembles more a Dr. Seuss book, knowing not which way it goes.
The White House press secretary unloaded on Pelosi in a statement, saying the speaker lied when she claimed this was urgent and vital to national security, because when the articles passed, she held them for an entire month in an egregious effort to garner political support. She failed, and the naming of these managers does not change a single thing. President Trump has done nothing wrong. Meantime, Pelosi suggested Trump's behavior, asking the Ukrainian president to do us a favor, looked like something from a mob boss.
Do me a favor. Do you paint houses too? What is this? Do me a favor.
As her fellow Democrats pressed the Senate for a legitimate trial.
That any trial that does not allow witnesses is not a trial. It is a cover-up.
That was Sarah Murray. Impeachment weighed heavily on last night's Democratic presidential debate. It was the last before Iowa caucuses kick off the 2020 election cycle. We'll hear more from the candidates later in the show. A Salvadoran asylum seeker has filed a lawsuit against the government. She says she suffered a miscarriage while in custody at a private detention facility in Otay Mesa. Rubia Morales entered custody in late 2017 and began to cramp and bleed after a couple of weeks. She blames a cold cell, non-nutritious food, and a lack of medical care. Court documents show staff told her the bleeding was normal and that she could buy sanitary pads to deal with the bleeding.
If we're going to make the deliberate choice to hold pregnant women in immigration detention, we collectively have to be ready to give them the care that they're going to need. And the Otay Mesa facility, by design, does not have that care.
The Otay Mesa Detention Center saw a similar miscarriage case in 2017. CoreCivic tells KPBS that it cannot comment on the pending case, but that it provides 3 nutritious meals a day to detainees. A U.S. federal judge in San Diego has granted the Trump administration a rare victory. Judge Dana Sabra ruled that ongoing separations of families at the U.S.-Mexico border based on parents' criminal history or health exclusions are being carried out with proper discretion. The judge added there was no evidence the government has, quote, returned to systematically separating families at the border. Sabra did say that the government should use its rapid DNA testing technology to confirm parentage and not separate families based on subjective concerns alone. The carrier USS Abraham Lincoln is on its way to San Diego. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says it will break the record for the longest deployment by a U.S. carrier since the Vietnam War.
The Lincoln left Norfolk April 1st. The delay has been tough on families who had to decide when to move across country, says Gina Swain, who is married to a sailor on board the Lincoln and works with Lincoln families.
We're basically the ones that have to tell the families, hey, like, it's unfortunate, your sailor's not coming home. And it is hard to deal with that.
The Lincoln was supposed to go around the globe and arrive at its new home port of San Diego by October. In May, then Trump advisor John Bolton announced the Lincoln would be redirected to the Middle East to counter an unspecified threat from Iran. Then the carrier was forced to stay when electrical problems sidelined the USS Truman. Swain says their 5-year-old son took the long deployment the hardest.
My son, he didn't take it well, that his dad wasn't here for Halloween or for any of the holidays. My husband has missed all of our birthdays, all of the holidays, 4th of July, birthdays, start of kindergarten for our son and everything. So it was hard for him, but he understands. My son is very smart, so that benefited him. He understands daddy's in the Navy, daddy has a job to do.
The long delay made moving even more complicated. The Navy's stipend for housing compensates for pricey San Diego, but families normally don't receive that money until their carrier actually docks in San Diego.
Because it's not easy moving without your sailor. Especially if you have children, whether they're older or younger, or even an animal, it's hard to do that.
Eventually, the Lincoln's command was able to arrange to release the larger amount, so families weren't left stuck. The carrier is still days away from reaching San Diego, though a handful of families have already had an early reunion. Renee Anderson's husband Kyle touched down at North Island late last week. They were married only a month before Kyle deployed. Then some of their furniture was damaged by a flood while it waited in storage.
I would stress over a lot of stuff, and he would just tell me, don't worry about it.
After 10 months at sea, the Lincoln has now left Hawaii. The rest of the more than 2,000 sailors on board the carrier, along with some of the remaining air crews, will arrive at their new home port of San Diego.
I think they're going to be overwhelmed with emotions, as I was, when I saw him get off that plane, and I'm like, he's here, he's not in my phone anymore.
Tomorrow, the Lincoln will break its own record for the longest deployment by a U.S. carrier since the Vietnam War, after surpassing 290 days at sea. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
The San Diego City Council moved a step closer to placing a $900 million bond measure on the November ballot to expand affordable housing. The council will now craft a ballot measure and bring it back to the council for another vote in June. If approved again by 2/3 of the council, the bond issue would go before voters in November. It would also require approval from 2/3 of voters. You see them everywhere. You may even have one near your home or place of work. We're talking about damaged sidewalks, and now the city is offering a unique incentive to get them fixed. KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar has more.
It's a problem across San Diego, damaged sidewalks, and it's costing the city big time. Councilman Mark Kersey says every year the city is paying out millions in lawsuit settlements.
We need to be spending more money on the repairs and less money on lawsuits and claims, right, when people hurt themselves. And so that is really where I want to focus the city's, the taxpayer dollars.
This week, Mayor Kevin Faulconer announced the city will waive permit fees for property owners who want to fix their damaged sidewalks. Beginning in 90 days and lasting for the rest of 2020, residents won't have to pay the more than $2,000 permit fee.
One of the things that we've been struggling with is how do we reduce the cost of people who want to actively go out and fix the sidewalk in front of their property on their own dime. But in many cases, the city's permit fee actually exceeded the cost of getting the work done, which is preposterous.
Kersey says incentivizing property owners to fix damaged sidewalks will help out the city. That's why he's hoping to double the funding for the city's 50-50 program from $300,000 annually to $600,000.
The city splits the cost of the actual work of repairing the sidewalk with the property owner. So the city picks up half, the property owner picks up half. You don't need to worry about the permit fee because there isn't one.
Right now, Kersey says there are 240 people on the wait list for the program. He's hoping that doubling the budget will get rid of the backlog. He's also proposed a plan for the city to spend $10 million in the next 10 years to repair sidewalks. That plan will be considered by City Council in February. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, the U.S. House votes to send the Trump impeachment to the Senate. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
You can see astronaut Jessica Meir EV-1, or Spacewalker 1, egressing the hatch now, flying about 267 statute miles over the Indian Ocean.
Really cool stuff there. And as you just heard, it was an eventful day for UC San Diego alumna Jessica Meir. She and fellow astronaut Christina Cook performed the first spacewalk of the year at the International Space Station. They ventured out to replace batteries on some solar equipment. Another spacewalk is planned for Monday. Now a story about a scientific achievement here on Earth. Work by a San Diego paleontologist is giving new insight on some of the planet's ancient creatures. KPBS science and technology reporter Shalina Chatlani has the story.
Paleontologist Ashley Palst fires up a microjack. It's a tiny jackhammer. He uses it to chip away rock surrounding a fossil.
Even though it looks scary vibrating at that speed, it wouldn't hurt you unless you really stuck yourself with it.
Palst is familiar with digging up, cleaning, and analyzing fossils. So when he looked at a fossil found by a farmer in China over a decade ago, he could tell this was the remains of a new species of dinosaur.
Many of the details matched up with the other small feathered dinosaurs that have been known from these rich fossil deposits in China, but there were other little details that were new and had never been seen in any other dinosaurs.
This new species is called Wulongbohyensis, a reference to the Chinese word for dancing dragon, to describe how graceful it looked in the fossil. This cat-sized creature, which lived 60 million years before the T-Rex, has a bony tail and another interesting characteristic.
So our specimen does have feathers. It has dino fuzz, or fluff, tiny plume-like feathers that come off of it all over the place. This was a period that was much warmer than today, but cooler than the rest of the time of the dinosaurs. And so that's really interesting to think about how the origin of feathers and the diversity of all these animals that have them might have been related to these changes in temperature.
Palst looked at cross-sections of the dinosaur's bones to confirm it's a new species. He says the rate of dinosaur discoveries has increased in the last 5 years thanks to more advanced technology and greater search efforts worldwide. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
Now take a look at this rare look at a group of mountain lions. It was captured by a home surveillance camera in the town of Jackson. That's in the Sierra foothills near Sacramento. Scientists say the group might include a mother lion with cubs. Now mountain lions are known as solitary animals, so it's rare to see so many together. New fallout from the controversial policy of preventative outages related to wildfires. A major energy company is facing another potential lawsuit. Sonoma County is exploring a plan to sue Pacific Gas and Electric over power shutoffs that were enacted last fall. Leaders there say economic losses added up to more than $700 million. PG&E is recently filed for bankruptcy, which could shield the utility from future lawsuits. Climate change made the 2010s the hottest decade on record. Now that's according to NASA and NOAA. The two agencies released their findings today, including a fever chart that shows the progression of the Earth's warming temperature. AP reporter Seth Borenstein explains what that means.
We haven't had a normal, so-called 20th century average year since 1977. I mean, that's the last time we had anything close to normal or even cooler than normal. These charts showing global temperature with different ways of measuring it, different groups measuring it, you see it's literally a fever chart. That's what graphic artists call it, a fever chart. And in this case, it's actually showing Earth's rising temperature, which a doctor, a public health specialist who's in the emergency room, who also studies how global warming affects heat stroke and people, and she said, Earth does have a fever. This is a symptom of the illness.
And the latest numbers also showed this past year, 2019 was the second warmest. Wildfires, melting ice, and extreme weather are all the result of a change in climate accelerated by human activity. Scientists say the trend will continue until there is a significant drop in greenhouse gas emissions. The chance of rain is easing, but it's still something to keep an eye on tomorrow. Dajia Swad has our forecast.
A pretty active pattern across the west coast as we track out a potent low pressure system that will continue to glide into the northwest for today. That same low pressure system will bring in some rain into portions of California, even some high mountain snow further to the north of Southern California. Now for the San Bernardino Mountains, they have the best chance to see some decent rain and snowfall. But as we head into San Diego County for your Wednesday and moving into Thursday, well, some of that moisture starts to dwindle down by the time it makes it into the area. So as we move through tonight, clouds are going to be noticeable out there. 42 in Oceanside. Some clouds grazing through in Borrego Springs with a low at 42 as well, and 36 in Mount Laguna, cooling down to 50 in San Diego. Tomorrow, we're topping off at 64 in Oceanside. Clouds will continue to be very present. And for today, in fact, we did have that onshore flow. So this moisture coming in from the north, plus that consistent onshore flow that we've been noticing, will aid in some of that cloud cover. 63 in San Diego for the high. For Thursday, 70 in Borrego Springs and 49 and Mount Laguna. As we take you into your Thursday night, this is where we start to see the best chance for some shower activity. As I mentioned, not going to be overly widespread. Starts to work its way in. By Friday morning, it's already going to be gone. And then by Friday afternoon, we get some clearing on the backside of this. For this weekend, we are going to be dry. Brutal air further to the north across the country, and a major storm system with that same low pressure system that's coming into the northwest will eventually move out to the east. So there you go. If you have any travel plans, something to keep in mind. Into next week, we do feel warmer, milder air will begin to build in for Southern California. Topping off in the mid-60s Thursday, Friday here at the coast, upper 60s Saturday with mostly cloudy skies, then into the 70s Sunday, upper 60s for Monday. Inland areas will also get that taste of warm air coming next week, Sunday and Monday in the 70s with partly sunny conditions. Moisture in terms of the short term will be limited here, but we'll definitely have the cloud cover as some of those showers try to work their way into portions of Southern California. Friday, lots of sunshine, high of 49 here in the mountains, and then going into the 50s for Saturday and Sunday. And we'll be cooling down Friday here in the deserts, a high of 66 with lots of sunshine, a bit more cloud cover Saturday. Reporting for KBBS News, I'm your meteorologist, Dajia Swad. Back to you.
Earlier, we updated you on the impeachment trial of President Trump, which is expected to begin next week. It comes as a new poll by NPR and PBS puts the president's approval rating at 42%. Last night, Democrats who want to beat him in November made their case to voters in Iowa and across the country. Ryan Nobles has more on the candidates.
A tense ending to the Democratic debate when Senator Elizabeth Warren declined to shake Senator Bernie Sanders' hand after the two progressives sparred about whether Sanders made a sexist comment to her.
I disagreed. Bernie is my friend, and I am not here to try to fight with Bernie.
Warren standing by CNN's reporting that Sanders told her in a closed-door meeting in 2018 that a woman could not win against President Trump in 2020, a claim he vehemently denied.
I didn't say it. Anybody knows me, knows that it's incomprehensible that I would think that a woman could not be president of the United States.
But despite their stories not matching up, Warren used the opportunity to insist that a woman's time in the White House has come.
Can a woman beat Donald Trump? Look at the men on this stage. Collectively, they have lost 10 elections. The only people on this stage who have won every single election that they've been in are the women.
Sanders wasn't interested in a squabble with Warren. Instead, he focused on President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. Sanders and Biden drew sharp lines about their stances on trade, the economy, and war, with Sanders accusing Biden of having bad judgment when he voted in favor of the war in Iraq.
Joe and I listened to what Dick Cheney and George Bush and Rumsfeld had to say. I thought they were lying. I didn't believe them for a moment. I took to the floor. I did everything I could to prevent that war. Joe saw it differently.
Biden defended his record, arguing his experience matters.
It was a mistaken vote, but I think my record overall on everything we've done has been, I'm prepared to compare it to anybody's on this stage.
Sanders also said he made a mistake in supporting the war in Afghanistan. Meanwhile, on health care, Warren, a supporter of Medicare for All, making the case that Biden, Pete Buttigieg, and Senator Amy Klobuchar aren't thinking big enough.
The problem is that plans like the mayor's and like the vice president's is that they are an improvement. They are an improvement over where we are right now, but they're a small improvement.
A claim Buttigieg rejected.
It's just not true that the plan I'm proposing is small. We got to move past a Washington mentality that suggests that the bigness of plans only consists of how many trillions of dollars they put through the Treasury, that the boldness of a plan only consists of how many Americans it can alienate.
Klobuchar accused Warren of a plan with numbers that don't add up.
I don't buy that it's not enough. It is a big step to say to people making $100,000 a year that your premiums will be cut in half, which is what the nonprofit public option will do. And if you talk, Mayor Buttigieg, about Medicare and having negotiation, I actually have led that bill for years.
And billionaire Tom Steyer made the case that he is about more than just his money.
Whoever is going to beat Mr. Trump is going to have to beat him on the economy, and I have the experience and the expertise to show that he's a fake there and a fraud.
And that was Ryan Nobles reporting. The Iowa caucuses are on February 3rd. California's primaries just a month later on March 3rd. Target, the nation's third largest retailer, is reporting a bah humbug holiday sales season. It saw a sales gain of just 1.4% in November and December, well short of the 5.7% growth during the same period last year. Weak sales for electronics and toys are being blamed. Target also announced a shakeup of its executive team. Trade tensions might be easing between the U.S. and China as both countries take steps toward a new agreement. Daryl Forges tells us the economic impact.
With the stroke of the pen, President Trump signing a new preliminary trade agreement with China.
This is the biggest deal there is anywhere in the world by far.
The 86-page Phase 1 agreement includes a commitment by China to substantially increase the amount of U.S. goods and services it buys, including billions of dollars in additional agricultural purchases over 2 years.
This is something that's going to be so special, however, to our manufacturers, our farmers, our bankers, our service people. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
The Phase 1 agreement is divided into chapters, covering topics that include intellectual property, technology transfer, agriculture, financial services, currency, expanding trade, and dispute resolution. Administration officials saying it is a first step towards resolving the trade war with China.
They'll purchase over $200 billion of additional things, dropping the trade deficit, which will lead to growth.
But this agreement is not a final resolution to all the trade issues between the U.S. and China. Tariffs on about $370 billion on goods imported to the U.S. from China will remain in place for now, and questions still remain about how the deal will be enforced.
The United States concedes our leverage, and in exchange, China makes vague, unenforceable promises it never intends to fulfill.
With Phase 1 now complete, President Trump says he'll visit China in the not-too-distant future. Daryl Forges, KPBS News.
Residents of San Diego's Broadway Heights neighborhood gathered to celebrate Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday today. KPBS education reporter Joe Hong spoke with community leaders about what younger generations can learn from the civil rights leader.
I have a dream today.
With the reenactment of his most famous speech, community leaders and students gathered to celebrate the 91st birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. Booker Sanders Sr. is on the Community Council for Broadway Heights. He said the speech rings true even today.
There's a lot of the history that has fallen outside of the school these days. And so we wanted to be able to bring that to the student so that they can better understand why there are so many Americans of color who ascribe to the freedom that Dr. King so richly spoke of in many of his speeches.
Martin Luther King Jr. was born in Atlanta, Georgia on January 15, 1929. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
And there will be more celebration in the days ahead, including the annual MLK Parade Saturday on Harbor Drive. The All Peoples celebration will be held Monday in Balboa Park. And they won again. The SDSU men's basketball team moved to 18-0 by beating the Fresno State Bulldogs last night, and soon they'll honor an Aztecs legend. Kawhi Leonard will have his jersey retired in a special ceremony on February 1st during the game against Utah State. He'll be the first to receive that honor at Viejas Arena. The game is sold out. All fans will receive a commemorative t-shirt. And here's a recap of tonight's top story. San Diego's mayor gives his final State of the City speech tonight. Kevin Faulconer will take the stage at Balboa Theater at 6 o'clock. Homelessness and housing will be among the big topics. This is Faulconer's final year in office due to term limits. As always, you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us tonight. Have a great evening.